Is Colby Covington still that guy? That's the question that we're all asking. It's 2024. UFC Tampa is on deck this weekend. It's the final event to close us out for the year. But Colby Covington, who is a relic of the past, if you will, is known for his pressure, is known for the chaos, the nickname that the man holds. And he is looking to make one final gasp, if you will, at a title shot, at contention. We're not really sure. But the question is, can Joaquin Buckley make a name off of him? Can he enter as the new generation of fighters that leaves the old ones in the dust? That's what we're exploring here today. But folks, this episode is going to look a little bit different if you are a normal subscriber to the program, because my co-host AJ, he's not with me here today. However, we could not leave you with the final event of the year without some picks and without some analysis. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown, and we're giving you a little bit of a preview of what's to come for the Bloody Water podcast in 2025. New look, same us, same fantastic picks. And folks, finally, before we jump into it, you see a couple of gold belts behind me. We will be doing the unveiling, if you will, the actual crowning of the head-to-head champion for 2024. So without any further ado, folks, there's a couple things that we need to jump into. And the first thing that we're going to be jumping into is a recap, because we are accountable. UFC 310, we need to go over the picks that we had. So folks, let me go ahead and let me share my screen here with you, and we'll go ahead and we'll start the recap. UFC 310, folks, you can see it right here on the screen. Consensus picks 4 for 4. Alexandre Pantoja, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Bryce Mitchell, and it looks like Christmas came a little bit early here for the Bloody Water podcast, because we did get gifted Cyril Gane decision victory over Alexander Volkov. Very questionable, but I will take it. Listen, luck is part of the game, and sometimes you'd rather be lucky than to be good. So that is 4 for 4 right there. Now, where we were good, and I guess lucky as well at the same time, 5-0 on the week. I did finish 310, perfect on the main card. AJ, he got 4-1. He took the flyer on Nate the Train Landwehr. Do Ho Choi was just too much for him. But what I want you to pay attention are one prop block and one parlay hitting a piece. My prop block hit Dom Reyes versus Anthony Smith over 1.5 rounds, though barely hit. It did hit, so we cashed that one. And of course, Dom Reyes, Anthony Smith over 1.5, plus Josh Van money line at plus 168, a plus money parlay in the books for you guys. So again, just want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable here. Final thing before we move on is, of course, Hooper Gita over 1.5. Hooper was too good for him. He got the job done under less than a round, I should say. And then I took the flyer, Cody Durden with the Pantoja money line for the anchor, and Josh Van, he's legit. I thought that we could take advantage of him coming up and still kind of learning about himself and becoming the contender that we know he's going to be. He's already the contender. There's no more ramp up period, no more warm up period. The man is legit. Finally, if we're taking a quick look at the records, we're going to do a full record analysis and all of that next week. But 134-77 for me, 63.5% on the year, 127-84, 60.19% for AJ. So at the end of the day, statistically, mathematically, we know who the champion's going to be. But again, we will unveil that next week. So tune in. It'll be a spectacle. It'll be fun. All right. Without any further ado, though, we're moving back on to the UFC Tampa Bet Sheet. AJ's not here, but he did his due diligence. He put in the film study, and he has the picks here for you. You're going to notice a little something odd here, folks. Probably one of the few times in this entire year that we've had only 2 consensus picks. 6 fights on the main card, Vitor Petrino and Navajo Sterling. Those are going to be the only consensus picks that we have here. Everything else is going to be up for grabs. I'm not going to explain AJ's picks. I'm simply going to explain mine. But you could see on the bet sheet here. So really quickly, Joaquin Buckley, Cub Swanson, Manel Kape, Vitor Petrino, Daniel Marcos, and Navajo Sterling. Those are my picks. If you were tailing me, that's who we're rocking with this week at UFC Tampa. Prop block, I love the dangerous Davy Grant versus Ramon Taveras over 2.5 rounds. The logic here, folks, Taveras, he's precise, he's a sniper, he wants to box with you. Davy Grant, he's durable, and he's a wily vet. That has all of the makings for a nasty decision victory on either one of these sides. That was bloody, that was dirty, that we almost saw a knockout, but not quite. That's what we're banking on. And you still can't see a finish. We just need to go over 2.5. Minus 135 is the play. Finally, let me just break down these parlays, because again, I'm not going to speak for AJ, but he does have Ottman Azaitar versus Michael Johnson over 1.5 at minus 140. Very, very value bet right there. Sean Woodson, Daniel Marcos, money line plus 155. Want you guys to lock that one in. That is a banging parlay. We'll talk more about it just a touch later if we do get an opportunity, but this will be a shorter episode than you were accustomed to. And then finally, Adrian Yañez versus Vitor Petrino, money line plus 295. Contrarian pick based on what I'm picking, but as a parlay, if Yañez does get the job done, you could see immense value in over almost plus 300 odds right there. So now my disclaimer to you guys, as always, is cash your bets in as soon as you can. When you see this episode, do not wait, because when we get these lines in, they shift quickly, and timing is part of what makes you a maximalist when it comes down to getting the best return, best ROI. So folks, that was your UFC Tampa bet sheet right there. If you want the real reasoning behind all of these picks, I'm going to break down a couple of these matchups one by one. Of course, folks, before we get there, if you have not subscribed to this program, we're closing out 2024 and we're doing it the right way, right? We've amassed almost about 3,300 subscribers here on the Bloody Water podcast, the army, the mafia, whatever you want to call it. All I want to tell you is I have one simple request. If you hit that subscribe button and you engage, drop a comment, do something fun like that, I guarantee you, I promise you, we're going to make 2025 the best year we have ever had. We are relentless week in and week out. This is a tedious schedule here for the UFC. We are breaking down film, getting you value plays and value bets every single week. The accuracy ratings can attest for that. So again, that's my promise to you. We're going to be mixing in some fighter interviews, bringing in more people on the podcast. So subscribe, you're going to be in for a treat, folks. All right.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick, G, and AJ.
Folks, what you need to know here is going to be pretty simple. I'm only going to bring up the screen, if you will, every now and then on a couple of these matchups, so you could take a look at one, who I am talking about, and then number two, you could see a couple of statistics. But Colby Covington, man, again, I said this guy is absolutely legit, and he is, or maybe he was. That's really what I should say. Joaquin Buckley seems to be the A side on this side of the docket. Minus 270 is the current line on Joaquin Buckley, which on one hand against a Colby Covington, a dude who has a lot of experience, who is 2-3 in his last 5, but I mean, you got to look at the names on there. Usman, Woodley, Usman again, Masvidal, Edwards. It's an older generation, right? But can we say that Joaquin Buckley has done enough in his career thus far to warrant that high of a price tag against a former champion? Some would say yes, and I'm actually going to argue on that camp right there. So one of the things that I want to talk about from a stylistic perspective right here is that Colby Covington is known for his pace, but if you look in his last fight against Leon Edwards, kind of weird, because some people would say he just had an off night, other people would say he doesn't quite have it anymore. I would say in this matchup that I'm hypothetically playing out against Joaquin Buckley, he needs to earn respect here in order to be able to initiate and grab and secure that takedown. Now, what do we see? Joaquin Buckley versus Nursultan Ruziboyev, or Vicente Luque, or Alex Morono, or Andre Fialho. I mean, you got to get something in his face for him to be able to back off and maybe think about, all right, I have to close the distance, and he has a reach advantage in this fight. I got to close the distance. How am I going to do it without getting taken down? If Colby Covington can't do that, and if his back is against the cage, I could see this being a short night, one. And number two, I could see Joaquin Buckley getting all of the respect in the world to be able to stave off the takedown attempts. And I think Colby Covington, without takedowns at this stage, at this point of his career, at 36 years old, I just don't think he's going to be able to beat Joaquin Buckley from that edge. So I like Joaquin Buckley through and through. The man has 14 knockouts in his career. He's 5-0 at 170 pounds. And most important, he's only been taken down one time since moving to 170 pounds. So super important statistics to take a look at. The final one that I have for Colby Covington, which is going to make me lean on the side of Joaquin Buckley, is that his fight versus Leon Edwards, legitimately, he had the lowest output that he has recorded since 2016. He had 44 strikes. He threw 2016 against Max Griffin back in 2016, and that was a dub right there. So 44 strikes isn't going to cut it against Joaquin Buckley. You need a high pace, or you need to hold him down. Low strikes, but hold him down. And if you don't have takedowns, like I said, Joaquin Buckley is absolutely going to be the play. So all we're going to be really discussing right here is I like Joaquin Buckley through and through at minus 270. That is a price tag that I would be willing to pay, but I also think that it's going to be much more value if you do parlay that with something else that's going to get you a little bit of a better return. You can even go ahead and parlay him with like Vitor Petrino, for an example, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So Last note on it before we move on, because this is the main event. This is the moneymaker event right here. Buckley has to make the most out of the knockout power early, man. If this thing does drag on and he's not able to garner that respect for Colby Covington, lets Colby Covington kind of walk him down. We saw Colby Covington turned on, right? He kind of came alive in rounds 4 and 5 against Leon Edwards. This is a 5-round bout. We got to see what happens early to determine what happens late right there. So my play, the official play right here is Joaquin Buckley minus 270 if you're tailing me. Pure money line, cash it, and we'll take the next one to the bank. All right. Swanson versus Billy Quarantillo right here, man. And this is a tough matchup because both of these guys are 2-3 in their last 5 outings. You know, not the most impressive record in the world, but it's a big difference between the two because Swanson's over 40 years old, right? You never really want to bet on the 40-plus year old fighters right there. But Billy Quarantillo, man, this is a guy that I rooted for, a Contender Series product that just hasn't been able to get it done against the bigger names. For an example, Shane Burgos, Edson Barbosa, Yusuf Zalal. He got finished by Zalal and Barbosa, lost a decision to Shane Burgos. And Burgos, I mean, he's not even in the UFC anymore. The man moved to PFL and has had somewhat of a lackluster career in the PFL thus far. So it just goes to show that Billy Q, known for his pace and his tenacity, I mean, something needs to give right here. He's made a lot of different talking points, right, about having distractions and all that stuff. But Swanson, who's coming off of that loss against Andre Fili, that was a close fight. And that fight against Hakeem Dawodu that he won, even though that was controversial too, that was a close fight. If you're having close fights against killers like that, I mean, it goes to show who's more motivated right now. Is it Swanson or is it Billy Q? Billy Q is getting a comeback game or a revenge game or a hometown game, if you will. It's Tampa, right? You get the hometown game, kind of. But for Swanson, this is the part that I will say is troubling. I'm backing Swanson because I just think that he's going to be a crispier striker. This is going to be more of a precision versus a pace type situation. Billy Q, big windups, big shots, look to enter the clinch, all that stuff. Swanson's going to try to avoid the clinch, avoid getting tied up, and try to keep it on the feet and keep it a swing and bang type fight. But again, precision versus pace. I think Billy Q's output is going to be more. If you take a look at the numbers right here, a little skewed, but 7 significant strikes landed per minute for Billy Q, 4.67 in return for Swanson. The big things that I took from like the big notes, right, is that Billy Q has been finished in less than 2 rounds in back-to-back fights. Like that's telling, right? I'm not saying Swanson's coming out here and he's going to finish him, but that's telling. And he hasn't landed a takedown in any of his last 3 fights. So not to say, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? It's like he got the win against Damon Jackson. You know, he got the decision victory, but he didn't get the takedown. So what does that mean? Now, for Swanson, your only wins, Darren Elkins and Hakeem Dawodu, losses to Giga Chikadze, Jonathan Martinez, and Andre Fili. Look at the level of competition that he's fighting. Only 2 decision wins in the last 5 years. So that's going to be the hard part. It's like on one hand, you're kind of banking on a Swanson finish, but I think decision is going to be the play, which I can understand how you could say that's a little hyperbolic, right? Or it's a little contrarian. Billy Q should be teed up for a decision. He's a minus 160 favorite right here, but I like Swanson at the plus money, plus 135. Crafty, veteran. I think that is going to be a matter of just breaking the rhythm. You have to be a rhythm breaker. If Billy Q gets into his bag and he does his grind you up against the cage, clinch, work for the takedown, it's going to be a long night, and I expect Billy Q to get a dub. But if Swanson can break his rhythm, I think that's going to be the value play all day long. So that is the play right there for Swanson. And, yeah, plus money. You can't be mad at that. At a 41-year-old, we don't bet on them very often, but it's UFC Tampa, and we're closing out 2024, so we got to do it, people. What are we talking about? All right, man, let's move on to this next bout right here. Again, really interesting matchup right here. Manel Kape, minus 390 currently. I don't like that number. Not against Bruno Silva, who is an absolute powerhouse, but we also have to be fair, folks. Bruno Silva is a different kind of competitor, if you will, than Manel Kape has faced in his last 5. Ode Osborne, Zalga Zumagulov, David Dvorak, Felipe Dos Santos, Mohamed Mokaev. Bruno Silva, fantastic grappling, but has pop in his shot. What is Bruno Silva known for? It's one very clear thing. It's the knockout. It's the finish. The man has 14 victories, 6 by knockout, 4 by submission, and he's won a performance bonus in 4 straight fights. This dude is legit. He doesn't fight that often, but I mean, the man comes to bang. But this isn't the first time that Manel Kape has seen a big power striker, right? He has noted, he's like, Bruno Silva wants to bring the fight, and I love to bring the fight too. And that is when you see Manel kind of excel at his best. Not that ticky-tack point fight like he had with Mateus Nicolau, but like a swing and bang, let me set up my counters and let's see what's going on. Mix in a little bit of grappling too. Manel Kape, 4-3 in the UFC. The Star Boy hasn't been as impressive as a lot of people thought coming back from Ryzen, or coming out of Ryzen, I should say. But that loss against Mohamed Mokaev with the toe injury, that was a close fight, man. And with the toe injury right there, I think it's safe to say that, I mean, Muhammad Kape is good, bro. Come on, obviously. But for Manel Kape, he really does think that he won the fight, that he got robbed right there. So you have to come in with the right mentality. But I just think that Manel Kape is going to be too technical. I think the footwork is going to be a little bit too good. And I think he needs to let the hands go in order to make this work. He does have an inherently higher strike volume, 4.44 significant strikes landed per minute, 3.3 for Bruno Silva. But this is the real key. Bruno Silva has landed at least one knockdown in 4 of his last 5 fights, which might make you a little concerned for Manel Kape. But Manel Kape, even though he's not the finisher that we really once thought he was in Ryzen, he's landed at least one knockdown in the last 4 of 5 fights. So I think this one has performance bonus written all over it at 125 pounds. I like Manel Kape, but I do not like Manel Kape enough to bet him at minus 390. So Manel Kape is a dude who I would say, why don't we take a couple other different looks, if you will? Like, for an example, if we go on the fight odds and we see the total rounds over 2.5 rounds, I can totally see that right there. I could see Manel Kape playing evasive, getting out the way. Bruno Silva, I mean, I don't think Bruno Silva is going to get caught by Manel Kape or get submitted by him. So over 2.5 or minus 210, I like that a lot more than I like Manel Kape at minus 390. If you do look at his points odds, though, even money. So you get what you bet. If you want to take the play, feel free. I think Manel Kape is going to be the play through and through. All right. Next up, folks, we're going to speed through this one because this is going to be a fun fight, but I think this one is pretty simple. Next up, we're going to be talking about Vitor Petrino versus Dustin the Hanyak Jacoby. It's been a sad follow-up for Dustin Jacoby, who was 1-4 in his last 5, and his win is going to be a knockout win against Kennedy and Nchekwu. Forgive me for mispronouncing the name, but Nchekwu was looking like a killer at heavyweight, and to see that Jacoby chinned him, but is getting losing to Khalil Roundtree, Azamat Mirzakhanov, Alonzo Menafield, Dominic Reyes. I mean, the man just needs to find his get-right spot. And the get-right spot for Dustin Jacoby is, I mean, it's going to be hard to find. It's going to be hard to find. You have to avoid the takedowns at all costs. You have to put a pace on this man. Look at the numbers right here, folks. 5.5 significant strikes landed per minute. That is much higher. That's double what Vitor Petrino is bringing to the table. But Vitor Petrino is a man who could take you down, is a man who can knock you out, but is also a man who's coming off of the first career loss, which was a submission against Anthony Smith in a fight that he was winning, man. So it's tough. But I think Vitor Petrino is in for a bounce back. I think more important than anything else is Vitor Petrino has something to prove. So I think that this one is going to end early. I don't particularly think this one goes to a decision, and if it does, it's because of timidity on the side of Vitor Petrino. Maybe not wanting to pull the trigger after getting finished in your last one, not wanting to make a stake, just wanting to get back on the board. We did see that a couple of weeks ago with a fighter that I thought was going to put on a massive performance. And he was like, listen, I just needed to get back into the win column. I'm blanking on the name, but it is a good point to make. Vitor Petrino, notable stats, landed at least one takedown in 5 of his 6 UFC bouts. That's going to be the plan here against Dustin Jacoby. And Jacoby has been knocked down at least once in 3 of the last 5 fights. So the final play that I have for you is looking at the fight odds. If you like Vitor Petrino by knockout, I think that's fair. Plus 120. That is a smash spot. But again, you do not bet Vitor Petrino pure money line minus 340, even though I really like him as a pure play. I think you parlay him, as we had spoken about a little bit earlier. So that's the play right there. Vitor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. All right, folks, next up, Adrian Yañez, Daniel Marcos. Folks, this one I'm really excited about right here because this is going to be a very fun match in the bantamweight division. Adrian Yañez, 6-2 in the UFC. Couple of slip-ups where we thought he was really going to take off, but, I mean, now you got Daniel Marcos, the Peruvian, who is 16-0 with 1 no contest, the man who I don't particularly think gets the credit that he deserves, if I'm being completely frank with it. But we know one thing is pretty clear, man. You lose 2 fights, Jonathan Martinez and Rob Font back-to-back versus Yañez. You can't be mad at that. Those are legit names. But it's the strength of schedule doesn't get any easier. You knocked out Vinicius Salvador, which was fantastic, but that was 125 or moving up to 135, right? And that was a man who, let's be real, Yañez, you saw it a mile away. He was setting traps. He was throwing counters. He was ready to get it. All right. That's got to be the game plan, though. Yañez, man, that's got to be the plan. You have to set traps to set up your pocket boxing and avoid getting your legs kicked out from underneath you. You have to against Daniel Marcos, because Marcos is slick. He'll move forward. He'll put pace and pressure on you, but also evade a lot of your big shots. And I could see Yañez just big swings, big shots, trying to set up counters, maybe find another finish. but the long-range attacks of Daniel Marcos are the ones that can keep Yañez at bay. He truly, I think he's a blue-chip prospect that doesn't get enough respect, although he is undefeated. So Daniel Marcos, I really like here. Some people aren't quite as high because, let's be real, man, you have seen some fights from an undefeated guy where you're like, you don't look, you can be super undefeated, you know what I mean? But win against John Castaneda, I thought was super impressive. Decision, Davy Grant, another wily vet that I talked about a moment ago. And then you do have a TKO win and then another decision victory right there. So big point is this is most likely going to be a striking affair. Adrian Yañez has never been taken down in the UFC. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I could bet Adrian Yañez here. Plus 185 does appear to be massive value right here, but I just think Marcos knows how to play the game enough. Minus 225, fair-ish bet. Let's take a look at some of the fight odds, though, really quickly, just so that I could show you guys to see if there's any more value to be had here. When we look at the fight odds, we are looking at over 2.5 rounds at minus 135, which I actually really like. I can see Marcos' decision all day, and then I can see Yañez trying to find the big shot and just not quite being able to connect. Other than that, yeah, if you want to take Marcos by points plus 170, I wouldn't be mad at you. I would not be mad at you. Actually, no, I'm not mad at all. Knocking out Adrian Yañez, I'm going to give him some respect. Nah, Daniel Marcos, take him pure money line. If you're scared, if you want to make some money, let's take that decision. Plus 170 points right here. This is going to be a banger. Only way that I really see a finish coming from the side of Daniel Marcos is if he just beats up the legs of Adrian Yañez and he's an immobilized target. So that's the play right there. All right, folks, and then to open us up, I have very little to say about this, but Navajo Sterling should be a very fun watch right here. Huge, monstrous, light heavyweight, coming out of City Kickboxing. I mean, this is what you need to know, man. 5-0, established kickboxing Muay Thai career, more or less, right? He was a King of the Ring champ, double champ, I think, in 2 different divisions right here. And the dude he's fighting, Tuco Tokos, right? Like his fight against Omar Sy, he just kind of got demolished from start. He never got to go. Right, but he is older and he's more experienced, as you can see, 34 years old. The fight record 10-4 as opposed to 5-0. The thing about Sterling, man, is that he has 3 finishes in 2 rounds or less, but he's raw. Right, this is literally going to be his 4th fight in the span of 6 months right here, and the man is 5-0 in MMA. So, can you see an upset? Yeah, 100%. And here's where you're going to see the upset. You're going to see the upset come from Tuco Tokos being able to avoid the big shot, initiate the grappling, and stifle the man there. That's where you're going to see it. I'm just not confident that happens. So instead, I'm going to go on the side of Navajo Sterling. I think that he gets it done, and I think he gets it done via knockout, which you get no value on, minus 160. So minus 850 favorite Navajo Sterling making his UFC debut. I mean, pretty much, right? Contender Series doesn't count as UFC. I take Sterling. I do not bet Sterling. I do not bet knockout Sterling. If you want to bet over 1.5 rounds, minus 140, under 1.5 plus 110. Maybe bet the under 1.5 plus 110 because I could totally see him just getting the job done super early. But aside from that, we don't bet this matchup right here. Fun prospect that you should keep an eye on. He looks monstrous in the cage, and when he lands, the thudding shots. So Navajo Sterling is going to be the play. All right, folks, that is your through and through breakdown. UFC Tampa, the final card of 2024. But if you are familiar with the Bloody Water podcast, you know that we do not end there. There are a couple of bonus plays that, unfortunately, the arbiter of truth and justice and all that is right in the betting world, AJ, is not here to give you the bonus play. That does not mean that we are not going to still use the bonus play. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we have to offer here. All right. So for the bonus plays, folks, 4 on the docket. Let's talk about them. First one, Miranda Maverick to win by submission at plus 150 against Jamie Lynn Horth. This is going to be a interesting play here because Miranda Maverick, known as a technical striker, right? Just kind of, it's kind of even mean brawler-esque sometimes, right? I think that she has definitely leaned into her grappling game. If she can get the takedown, take advantage, plus 550 right there is something interesting to think about just off the deficiencies of the ground game for Jamie Lynn Horth. That is one of the plays that we have here. Woodson versus Fernando Padilla, fight to go the distance at minus 210. Another really interesting play that we have here. Woodson, very long, very lanky, but does not enjoy the normal, if you will, and I'll even show you what the numbers are looking like. He doesn't enjoy the normal reach advantage that he has over most people. The best part about Sean Woodson is he has a frame that almost nobody can match in his division, but Fernando Padilla is right there. He's just as long, he's just as lanky. That means that I don't think we see a finish coming from Woodson, and Padilla, who is absolutely a finisher, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to use his same intangibles or his same listen, man, the reach, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if he'll use his frame the same way to be able to set up that finish. Woodson is incredibly elusive as well. Both of these dudes, high strike count, so I could see on one hand how people could say this is just an automatic finish waiting to happen. But if you take a look at the implied fight odds, over 2.5 rounds is minus 240. So if you're trusting Vegas, if you're trusting the bookies right here, I like the fight purely to go the distance, which doesn't give you odds here, but we're tracking minus 210 from the bet sheet right here. So again, that's what I wanted to show you right there. And folks, I do realize now, I believe that I'll show you the bonus play and not showing you this the whole time. So this is what I was trying to show you, tail of the tape and fight odds right there. All right, let's jump back into the bonus play. Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose fight ends in a submission at plus 200. So this is on either side. Now, I do like Joel Alvarez right here, but let me go ahead and let me pull up. There we go. All right. So for Joel Alvarez, as you can see on the board right here, we're looking at, let me see, fight odds. There we go. Submission, plus 165 submission, plus 2,500 for Drakkar Klose. We're not seeing a submission for Drakkar Klose, but I do like the submission. I like it just because anything can happen right here. And Joel Alvarez is a dude who's going to look to beat you up. I think this happens one of two ways, man. He's a minus 475 favorite, but look at that, plus 275 TKO, plus 165 for the submission. I see club and sub all day. I think Drakkar Klose is a tough guy to finish, but I think that doesn't matter how tough you are, man. If you don't have oxygen, you can't breathe. I see Joel Alvarez continuing the pace that he's on, using the frame and the size that he has, because he did come out open recently, and said this is one of the last fights he's going to be having in the lightweight division. He's going to need to move up to welterweight because the weight cuts are just going to be a little bit too hard. Again, he's 31 years old too, so the body changes. So that's going to be a play that we got there. And to finalize it, Michael Johnson to win by decision. Folks, actually, let me give you the odds for it. What was it? Plus 275. Let's see if we're still tracking. Michael Johnson, where is he at? Their featured prelim versus Ottman Azaitar. To win by decision, he's minus 220. So rare. Michael Johnson, a favorite. This is a dog spot. This is where we take advantage. But he's a favorite against Ottman Azaitar. As long as he doesn't get chinned, as long as he can somehow protect that chin, I think he's going to be in a good spot. By points, plus 275 right here. And again, what were we tracking? Plus 275. So that's equal right there. We like Michael Johnson. If you can't get him at plus money here, I think we get him at plus money on the points right there. So those are the overall bonus plays. And now I will be your arbiter of truth and justice and all that is right in the world here. And I think that of all of the plays that we have here, we're going to go with that Michael Johnson, win by decision. It goes hand in hand with the over that AJ has locked in for his prop lock. We're going to rock with Michael Johnson, win by decision. That's going to be your bonus play official for UFC Tampa. All right, folks, and then to finalize it here,
it's time for some fight night.
And if you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
I did want to bring up finally my sleeper on the night, because you do deserve to have a prelim sleeper. I've talked about it already, but Dangerous Davy Grant versus the Savage Ramon Taveras. What you need to know here is that these two have 19 combined finishes. Taveras has only seen a third round 3 times in his pro MMA career, and Davy Grant, man, he's very well versed, right? He's at his best when he can mix things up on you, when he can blend and incorporate his striking and his grappling. Taveras is a little bit more of a pure boxer who I could see getting in the pocket, slipping and ripping, and really just beating up Davy Grant in the early rounds. We'll see what happens, because Davy Grant he's known to swing a little bit wild, you know what I mean? But you don't get to 13-7 for no reason, man. He's a tenured veteran, and I think that, again, this is kind of similar to one of the matchups that I spoke about earlier. I think it was the Cup Swanson Billy Q fight, but another one where he needs to break up the rhythm of Taveras, right? Look, for Taveras, he's going to try to control distance and range and be precise, but Davy Grant, you have to make it a dogfight. So again, if you're looking at the UFC record, Davy Grant 6-6, he's looking to, if you're going to start closing it down here, you got to end on a high note. Taveras 1-0, controversial decision versus Surrey City. But I think that this is going to be a really good fight, and we'll see how extended Taveras can get. Because if this goes deep, if this goes into those bloody waters right here, you always love the dangerous Davy Grant, who is known to be able to get, I think it was that last third-round submission. That was a late third-round submission against Rafael Assunção in the fight before the Daniel Marcos fight. So I think this has sleeper written all over it. Absolute banger. Again, this is one of the early bouts, so tune in. Not even on the main card, free on the prelims. The whole thing, you don't have to have ESPN Plus, the whole entire 9, folks. All right. Folks, that was your breakdown, UFC Tampa. Again, different show, but this is a preview on what 2025 is going to look like. Moving to a little bit of a new style, a little bit of a new workflow presentation, but thanks for sticking around. If you're still here, drop a like, subscribe, comment, and we will catch you next week for the official award, official crowning of the 2024 Head-to-Head Bloody Water Podcast Annual Tournament. You got to love to see it, but that's it for us. Until next time. Peace.